Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome back to an episode of Ask Alec, where I take your questions and answer them here in short videos. Today's question comes from my boy on Instagram, Guil Medalt. Hope I'm not butchering your name, but I definitely am. He says, if you had to start over, what would you choose? Cash games or MTTs? If cash games, 6 max, heads up, or full ring, and why? This is a great question, man. And so many people come to me asking me where to start or where to play poker in 2018, 2019. Like, how do you figure out where's the best place to put your energy in poker? Where are the games the most beatable? And most importantly, what games are going to give me what I want out of poker? What games are going to give me the lifestyle I'm looking for? What games are going to allow me to move up in stakes the fastest or win the most money or have the highest ROI? So in this video, I'm really going to address what I think is the best place to start, where the best place to play poker is in 2018, and hopefully give you guys some feedback on, if I was starting over today, or if I was just breaking into poker today, what are my thoughts on the market? And where's the best place to invest your time? So let's jump into it. First off, poker scene in 2018. It has definitely gotten tougher over the years. Like poker in 2003 when I started playing was obviously much easier. It was a more inefficient game, right? Like there were just people, the game had evolved less, so the strategies were different. But just because the game has evolved more doesn't mean there isn't still edge or there isn't still ways to be ahead of the curve. The fact is that there's more people involved in poker, there's more information available in poker, there's more of a scene around poker. So yes, it's in some ways harder for someone to just start playing the game and winning, but that doesn't mean there aren't going to be phenoms or people that are ahead of the curve or people that absolutely crush. I feel like chess has made similar progress, right? Like advancements in AI and computer programs made chess a more competitive game, but at the same time, there are people that are using those programs and starting over in a different way and learning to study to be ahead of the curve that are absolutely crushing. Magnus Carlsen is an example, right? His raw talent versus Bobby Fischer's raw talent, it's like he's rated higher, but they were both ahead of the curve, and there's room for both of those people to crush in their sport. And the same is true in poker. Like, you're not going to sit down and do what we were doing in 2003, which was like raising preflop and c-betting and winning money, but that doesn't mean there aren't new strategies and tactics that you can do to win money in 2018. They're just different. But there is, with the fact that poker becomes more difficult, there are more programs and tools and resources available for you to improve faster, so that the baseline talent is going to be higher. But for the people that want to study and be ahead of the curve, it requires the same amount of work. So that's the bottom line that I'd like people to understand, is that to be the best in the world, if you were Bobby Fischer, required the same amount of work to be the best in the world if you're Magnus Carlsen. They both had to study and be ahead of the curve relative, and this is the key point, relative to the information that was available at that time. And so maybe poker, you could argue that it's a little bit harder today because there's more of an industry, there's more people in poker. But then the flip side of that is that it's so much easier to get better because you can watch free videos on YouTube. You can join a poker training site for very little money. You can have poker programs you can download for $5 or $10 or free that are going to make you immediately better at poker. And so it's easier to get to that point where you're better. And so I think that there definitely is room to break through the industry in 2018, and you just have to be able to know what to do and spend a little bit of time focusing on the game. As far as where I would start, this is kind of the balance that I personally think makes the most sense, but a lot of it depends on your personal situation. There is no one size fits all, and I would employ everyone to really use self-awareness to understand what makes the most sense for them. Are you the type of player that likes a mathematical, game theory, really numeric-based approach to poker? If so, online might be a format that's more suitable or conducive to your skill set. If instead you really like the human interaction, you like the psychological aspect, you're more of an intuitive type of player, you might find that the live poker format is more suitable to you. Now, do you like the really aggressive style and being, I guess, the format or the nature of tournaments where like there's ICM. You're not playing for your chip value, but you're playing for moving up against the money ladder. You're using your chip stack to your advantage. If you're the big stack, you're patient. If you're short stacked, you're really kind of crunching the numbers to understand the EV of shoving and reshoving. If you like that style of play, you might find that tournaments are more suitable to you. If you like really fast, aggressive play and being in action all the time, you might find that heads up or short-handed cash games are better. If you like to be really patient and really work through deep understanding of psychology and hand ranges, you might find that full ring 9-handed cash games are your thing. My personal thing is I've always loved cash games more than tournaments, and that's just because I feel like there's more skill involved in cash games because you're deeper stacked, and so you have more decisions to make. And when you're deeper stacked and you have more decisions, the difference in decisions between the best and the worst players are bigger. Whereas if you think about a more simplistic form of poker, like short stack tournaments, everybody's basically playing them the same way. Like when everyone has 15 big blinds or less, the game of poker is solved and everybody is pretty much pushing and folding with the same ranges from the same positions. You could download push fold charts at consciouspoker.com for free. And so as long as you memorize those charts, like people aren't making any mistakes, so there's not really any edge. So there's this really complex form of poker like cash games and a very simplistic form of poker like short stack tournaments. And then there's everything in between. There's short stack cash games and deep stack tournaments where things meet in the middle. But in general, I feel like on the end of the spectrum is the very deep stack 200 big blind cash games where the most amount of skill is involved, and it also comes with the least amount of variance. So that's my preferred format of poker. I think your hourly is going to be the highest, your variance is going to be the lowest, your ROI is going to be the highest, and I think that's more sustainable, and it makes more sense to invest in playing that format of poker because you can win more money long term. So I would use that. That's not to say that tournaments don't have their place or online poker doesn't have its place. And this is sort of the breakdown I would use. I would use live poker and live cash games as my bread and butter to make money. Now, I know this isn't practical for all people because maybe you live 2.5 hours away from a casino, and I'm empathetic to that. And so, you might have to adjust your lifestyle differently. You might have to take weekend trips to play poker and do like intermittent poker where you're all in for 2 days, playing 8 hours a day, and you log 16 hours or 20 hours a week over the weekend, and then you don't play for 5 days. Or you take a trip for 4 days a month, and then you don't play the rest of the month, and that might be what you have to do to get your hours in or to get your hourly in. But and I recommend that to a lot of clients. We work through that, and that makes a lot of sense for a lot of people depending on their lifestyle or where they are. But that would be the approach I would use. And then I would maybe use online poker, whether it's tournaments or cash games, just to get your fundamentals up, just to get your hands in, just as like a way to improve and get the repetition of playing poker, right? It's like you can play so many more hands online than you can live, so you get through so many more situations and simulations that you understand how to navigate certain situations, and you could apply those techniques that you've learned. Like, for example, you get really good at understanding your pre-flop ranges. You get really good at understanding what hands to c-bet with and what hands to check with, what hands to check fold, what hands to check call, what hands to check raise. And you get really good at understanding how to navigate those basic situations. Then when you go to the live poker table, suddenly your fundamentals have elevated because you've had all this repetition under your belt. You've had all these hours and these hands of experience. And now you're a better overall player, and then you apply that to your live game where you can really maximize your hourly rate. So that's what I would recommend to do. As far as cash games and tournaments, if I were starting over, I would pretty much do the same thing I do today and that I've done my whole career. I would make my bread and butter cash games, and then I would take shots in tournaments with a small percentage of my bankroll to give myself the best chance to have like a high ROI victory, right? So if you think about a normal portfolio, like you're going to invest your money in the stock market, or you're going to just take your overall net worth and think about how to distribute it to best preserve your wealth and also grow your net worth, most of your money is going to be in a low risk situation, right? Pretty much no matter what situation you're in. Yes, you're going to be more aggressive if you're 20 and you have a large net worth, but like you're not going to put 90% of your net worth in Bitcoin. Like, that's probably not going to be how most people would advise you to structure your portfolio, just because like it's such a high volatility thing that you're always open to going broke. Now, if going broke isn't a problem for you because you make $250K a year in your job and you could just replenish your 25K poker bankroll in a second, then obviously you're in a different situation. But for most people who don't want or can't afford to bust their poker bankroll of 5 or 10,000 and then replenish it the next day with, high liquidity in their net worth or their overall lifestyle, preserving their bankroll has more utility than growing their bankroll, because they need to have a bankroll in order to function and play poker. So most of my poker bankroll would be in a situation where it's as low of volatility as you can have in poker. Poker is still high volatility to begin with. So, we used the Bitcoin analogy before. Poker is like, one of those high volatility things. So if you look at if we take a step back and you look at your overall net worth, you should probably, wouldn't want to have 90% of it in poker, because poker, like, an emerging market like crypto, is like very high volatility to begin with. It's like a startup. So poker to begin with is like investing in a startup, but I would take my poker bankroll and divide it and say, okay, I'm going to take some of my money and put it in poker, and then of the money that's put in poker, I'm going to put most of it in cash games because it's the lowest risk investment there is, and then some part of it in tournaments, just like you would your normal stock portfolio. Most of it is going to be in stocks or bonds or gold, and then some of it's going to be in startups. You're going to take some amount of money and throw it into a startup or a crypto or whatever it is that's your high risk investment. And that's the same thing I would do with my poker bankroll. And so because of that, because my bankroll is the way that I anchor all the rest of my decisions in poker, I would invest most of my time in cash games, 80% of my time, 80% of my studying, 80% of my bankroll, 80% of my resources, and then 20% in tournaments. You want to have some part of your bankroll allocated to tournaments, because let's face it, in cash games, you're always going to make your hourly. You're going to make, $20, $30, $50, $100, whatever it is, maybe $1,000, whatever your hourly is per hour. But in tournaments, you can always earn way more than you can in cash games, because you can hit a big score. So if you're making $40 an hour playing 2-5 no limit, you're never going to make $30,000 or $50,000 in a short span of time. Whereas if you play a $500 or $200 tournament, you can definitely have a 50K score. And so that could surge your bankroll up to where you're automatically jump starting your life to play the next level of poker. You're going from 2.5 to 5.10 or 2.5 to 10.20, or being able to afford financially to take shots at that game. Doesn't mean you have the skill yet, but you can afford to take shots at that game pretty much overnight, just because you've now surged your bankroll up to that next level. So that's how I would navigate this situation, man. I hope this video helped you. Subscribe to my channel if you like this content, because there's a lot more awesome content coming your way. We have new videos coming out every week, sometimes twice a week here at Conscious Poker YouTube. Subscribing is the best way to stay tuned to what's coming, and also to let me know that you like this content so I can produce more of it for you. If you have questions, you could submit them at alectorelli.com/askalec. Otherwise, like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts below. How would you break into poker in 2018? Where are you investing your time in poker? I know the community would really benefit from your feedback. And so leave a comment below so that they could learn and get ideas about where the best places to play poker in 2018. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you guys watching, and see you guys next time. Cheers.